Welcome to my Aquarius full moon deep dive special. I'm going to share with you what a full moon is, why Aquarius full moons are so interesting, but what makes this particular Aquarius full moon this year so incredibly unique, because it's absolutely electrified with energy. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundell. If you're new to my channel, it's lovely to have your company. Please feel free to comment. Your interactions are greatly appreciated. If you're a returning visitor, thank you so much for all your support. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel, please help it thrive by clicking that sub button, but also the bell notification symbol. If you're a patron, thank you for your support. I'm going to upload a factoid on both what full moons are, but also what blue moons are too. You can become a patron from $3 a month. If you'd like to have a one-to-one with me, I'm a consulting astrologer. Please see my testimonials below. If you'd like your free daily written horoscope fired to your device each morning, please see the subscription link below. I've also launched my year 2025 personal horoscope forecast offer. You can order it now to get the rest of year 2024 free, 30% off, but also your life roadmap report. This will give you searing insights into the life patterns that have played out so far, but how you can work with them more succinctly future forwards and understand the upcoming influences for the coming year. Please see below for more. So an Aquarius full moon, what is a full moon? It's when the sun and the moon are directly in opposition. A new moon is when they're unified. So a full moon, essentially, they're in competition. The sun, very much the essence of our being, and rules the sign of Leo. Also, this full moon at 27 degrees and 15 is in the third decan of Leo, which is sub-ruled by the feisty Mars. Whereas the position of the moon in Aquarius is sub-ruled by Venus. So that's interesting. We've got a real conflict there too. So what makes this particular Aquarius full moon so unique? Well, it's that the modern higher octave ruler of the sign of Aquarius is in an almost perfect T-square between the sun and the moon. Now, a T-square is when the intersecting planet, in the case of Uranus in Taurus, is activating both the energies of the sun and the moon. But also in the mix, we've got the retreating Mercury, which later on the 19th of August, is going to come into an exact GEMINI. This is an inferior conjunction. This is when Mercury's rotating backwards, as it seems. That's the optical illusion. But the conjunction with the sun in Leo can give us extra resonance to express our ideas, but perhaps in a prideful way. The energy of the moon in Aquarius is very much about the team. It's humanitarian. It's about how we can help each other. The sign of Leo is much more about I. So it's I, V, we. But intersected by the electric but disruptive energies of Uranus in the sign of Taurus, where Uranus is in its fall. That's very much about resources. And we've seen since 2019, since March, a huge shift in the way money is transacted, in the value of things, the cost of things. Also, the sign of Taurus can be about land, and we've seen sudden insursions in terms of other countries grabbing other lands. So it's been a pretty tricky time since Uranus moved into Taurus. And because Mercury's in the mix on this particular full moon, we're also getting even more electricity, because Mercury, for its rulership of Gemini, is about quick, fast thinking and expression, but it can pivot very, very speedily. And that means when it comes to our values, which the sign of Taurus represents, our money, and Leo, which is very much about getting what we need, expressing our talents, our desires, and having pleasures, but very much about manifesting our individual natures, that needs to work for the more humanitarian collective energies of the sign of Aquarius. But we've also got a fixed star in the mix at 27 degrees and 45 minutes, and it's Guyena. And that can be neutral, but it can see the potential for us to soar to great heights, but also there could be a sudden downfall. Now, who's this going to impact on most of all? At 27 degrees and 15 minutes, if you do have any fixed energies, so that is Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, or Aquarius, from around about 24 degrees to 29 degrees, the anaretic point, or you've got early mutable influences. So that is Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, or Pisces. You're going to feel this in an angular way as well. Now, the other big takeout of this particular full moon is the fixed nature of the players. So we've got the moon in fixed Aquarius, we've got the sun and Mercury in fixed Leo, and we've got Uranus in fixed Taurus. If we do not flex, if we're discussing something to do with what we value, or to do with a possession or a financial matter, particularly if we're trying to get a balance between what we want as individuals and what perhaps other people expect of us, if we don't flex, that's going to create an enormous amount of tension. So what we need to do is be prepared for a lot of electricity. We may be suffering if we have got some tricky situations to deal with some headaches, with some physical pain. We may find ourselves being much more irritable. It may be much more difficult if someone makes a demand on us. And the sign of Leo can be about children, it can be about our lovers, it can be about our social life. But the sign of Aquarius is what we need in terms of to preserve our values, because it's the sign of higher values, and the sign of Taurus is more about earthy values. So we've got a lot of juggling to do here over the next 2 weeks, the period of influence of this particular full moon, which is also a blue moon. We've got the third full moon in a season of 4. And what I would say to you really is that if we can all try to stick the best we can with the guidance of the moon in Aquarius, which can be a bit more detached. We've had Pluto there being something of a wrecking ball, because the concept is that Pluto in Aquarius has to be so much better than Pluto in Capricorn. It just isn't that simple. The moon in Aquarius has great potential to offset some of the more negative influences that the retreating Pluto in Aquarius has created. Pluto in Aquarius is not going to be a panacea. It can be detached, it can be cold. Pluto can be ruthless. This could be the reorganization of the labor force of us collectively. So having the moon in Aquarius just reminds us that we need to keep connecting to one another, not be too attached to things, whether it is possessions, whether it is being prideful about things, thinking that we might be better than someone else who comes from a different slice of society. That's something to watch as well. And with the two sub-rulerships of Mars on Leo and Mercury, and of, in the case of Aquarius, Venus, which of course is the ruler of the sign of Taurus, that can create quite a lot of attraction potentially. So we could find ourselves in a friendship situation suddenly being really wrapped with someone that we meet through a friend of a friend or a social event. But is it the right thing for us? And it can all happen very, very quickly. So if you find yourself being impulsive about buying something over the next couple of weeks, and we know with Mercury retrograde, we have to be mindful of the details of any transaction, just be aware of what your motives are. So we need to understand with this full moon, what do we stand for? What will we stand up for? What's more important, our connections to one another as a collective, or getting only what we want as individuals? That's the challenge, and there are going to be some temptations, I feel, over the next few weeks. Now, in terms of the timings of this event, it's the 19th of August in every major city of the world, bar Sydney. I'm sharing on the screen now the exact timings for you. Now, in terms of the event charts, I'm showing now the solar event chart. You can see there's the moon in the 11th house for Aquarius, the sun in the 5th alongside Mercury, and we have Uranus in the 2nd house. So that's really what I've been sketching out. Well, what about the event chart? Based on Greenwich Universal Time, because of the prime meridian, so I feel we can all collectively relate to this. We have an ascendant in Aquarius, and that puts the moon in the 1st house. It's very much about asserting our identity, whereas the sun and Mercury, ironically, are in house 7, reminding us of the importance to listen, to tune in to what people are saying, and to really hear what they're saying. But we have the electric Uranus, the very disruptive Uranus, in house 3. Someone could assert their opinions in quite a dynamic way. We may find that alarming, but if they feel they've been putting up with some kind of injustice, the sun and Mercury in house 7, the rebel position of the moon in Aquarius, which is where I have it, just so you know, is really pushing to stand up for what makes us different. Go for what's authentic, not for what's trendy. Not for what we feel that people will approve of. Very Leo, to be honest, because it's a very traditional position for the combination of the sun and Mercury to be in. So that gives you a flavour, a lot of electric energy. There are going to be some opportunities, I feel, to connect with people in quick ways, which could be really, really exciting and make our pulses race. If there is someone in our group or situation who really captures our imagination, but we could also find that someone makes a demand on us as an individual which we don't feel is very fair, and that's where that more rebellious energy of Aquarius and the value orientated ruler of the modern ruler of Aquarius, Uranus, is pushing back to stand up for what's truly right. Please stay with me as I go through each of the 12 signs from Aries through to Pisces for what you can expect over the next 2 weeks. So Aries, for you, the moon's in the part of your situation to do with your long-term plan. Pluto may have been shaking up your long-term plan since the 21st of January. It is going to invert back into the sign of Capricorn, depending on where you live in the world, across the 1st or the 2nd of September. So there may be a little bit more refinement around your career and goals and ambitions still to come. So what we've got with the moon here is some of the echo that's gone on with Pluto, but more in terms of how it feels. How do you feel about some of the people you're connecting to at the moment? Are they people that you really feel value you? That's Uranus in the 2nd house. Do you feel that you're heard when it comes to your talents, your creativity, your flair, your affection even? Do you feel heard even in a romantic alliance? And do you see that romantic alliance being for the long term or not? This could be a break point over the next couple of weeks from any situation that you feel isn't really giving you that return. You don't feel validated. You don't feel particularly appreciated. So say, for example, in a job, if you're in a job that's very dull, doesn't give you much chance to sparkle as an individual, even if the money is okay, you could start to find yourself looking around for other opportunities. But also it's important to know that the moon in Aquarius is your network. Who can you link up with in order to render some better results out of the situation you're in? If you are in a relationship that's going pretty well, but perhaps you don't seem to have much time for yourself, I feel that the Uranian energy of this particular event could see you wanting to perhaps go off with a friend, have a day shopping, splash out a little bit, do something a little bit more independently for you. So Taurus, how has Uranus been impacting upon you since March 2019? If you've really changed up your life in quite a radical way, you've been working with the energy. If you're thinking, for example, to liberate yourself from a family demand or a domestic demand or even a professional one with the moon in the 10th house, this event could be the trigger. So if there's a big shift going on in terms of your work-life balance, this event is going to be very influential over the next 2 weeks. What's the potential traps? Well, I feel that Mercury being in retrograde and being so close to the Sun just suggests not to rush the decision, because if you do, it may be that you're actually acting on impulse. And maybe there's part of you that also feels a little bit riled up and wants to show people that you're not going to be pushed around on their terms. So that part of you that can be quite stubborn and willful could come to the fore on this particular event. But then equally, if you're living somewhere, the Sun and Mercury in your 4th house, which doesn't feel that it's right for you, it's too small, too big, in the wrong location, too quiet, too busy, whatever it is, this event could give you the impulse to actually do something about it, because one of your core natures is to stick with what you know. That continuity gives you a sense of security. But this is a particular event that really could see you much more tempted to tear things up and approach things in a completely fresh way. That's fine, but just make sure that you're listening to the people who may have your best interests at heart. So that could be the moon in the 10th house, someone who has experience and perhaps can see how unsettled you're feeling, and important just to let their points of view just work into your situation, because if you do rush something, it could be something that you do come to regret. So Gemini, interesting for you, because the position of your ruler Mercury and the Sun in the 3rd house, very redolent of the core energies of your sign, arcing back to the moon in the 9th house, very much about freedom, higher values. The 3rd house is something that you really are so attuned to. It can be those very fast conversations. But because Uranus is stirring things up in your 12th house, one of the things that I think could happen from this event is you have quite an unexpected conversation over the next couple of weeks, which could bring a revelation into the open. Now, it may be you that's about to fess up about something that's been simmering away, and it could be something you feel a sense of injustice around. But equally, someone could surprise you with an observation about some of your approaches, and you could find it, to be honest, a little bit wounding. How can you respond to this if so? Well, maybe in some ways, Uranus in your 12th house is asking you to become much more conscious of parts of your nature, your shadow side, your subconscious, the more emotional and spiritual and psychological realms, which air signs generally can get a little challenged by. Even the moon on this event in the Aries Aquarius can be a bit detached. That detachment can actually keep an emotional trim in some ways, because when everyone else is losing their heads, you can stay quite cool and work out what your response could be. But I think what's going to happen over the next couple of weeks is you may have to make a very, very speedy decision. It could be about a contract. It could be about a publishing situation. It could be about something to do with digital media. It could be about something to do with an immediate connection to someone in your locality. So a community group, a neighbour, maybe a sibling's about to surprise you with a point of view, or connecting to you in a way that you're not expecting. But one thing's for sure, Gemini, there's going to be a lot of electricity. So if you are someone who tends to be a little bit of a light sleeper, this is probably a great time to practice all that what they call sanitized sleep, you know, the blackout curtains, no caffeine before bedtime, doing some meditation, listening to some peaceful music, really doing some gentle exercises and stretching, or something more vigorous if you'd like, with the 3rd, 9th house energy. But one way or another, you're going to have an excess of energy and you do need to burn it off. So Cancer, for you, the journey of the Sun, and previous to that Venus, and now again Mercury in its second passage through the sign of Leo, is asking you to think about what your values are, but also about resources. Money, in blunt terms. The 8th house position of the moon is about where you're invested with someone else. It can be emotionally, can be in a spiritual, psychological way, can be romantically in terms of intimacy. It could be who you choose to bank with, to be honest. But the position of Uranus is in a very radical sector of your personal solar chart, the 11th house. So if you go back to March 2019, I guarantee that your life has changed quite considerably since then. You may have found yourself heading in a direction that previous to that may have felt a little bit unattractive. Maybe new people with different ideas have really captivated your interest. But the problem is, at this particular juncture and over the next 2 weeks, if some of the people you're friendly with take you for granted, perhaps eat you out of house and home, are always prompting you to do things with your cash, or perhaps you've got a friend who's very much into get-rich-quick schemes, steer completely clear of them over the next couple of weeks. So when it comes to your resources, a very moderated view and something that you have a talent for, because Cancer people, you really are one of the most skilled managers of resources in the whole zodiac. But Uranus is pushing you to be a bit more daredevil, a bit more impulsive. You may even find yourself splashing out or tempted to splash out on a big ticket item which challenges your future financial security because you find it so appealing. So that's when you need to just bring into action that part of your nature that can be much more protective, much more security orientated. But when it comes to the things you share, and that could be in a close relationship, could be with your kids. You know, if you've got someone living at home with you, someone you're wanting to be very protective of, but maybe they're not understanding the financial reality of your situation, you may have to give them some blunt home truths, Uranus in their 11th house, and remind them that to protect your future situation, the 11th house, there needs to be some trimming in terms of the ins and outs. So Leo, the sun is coming to the end of its journey through your sign. What a journey it's been, because of course you've had Venus in the mix, initially Mercury, then Mercury moved along with Venus into house 2, and then they met on the 8th of August, Mercury in its retrograde back into your sign on the 15th. So what do we make of this electric cazimi? Well, you could put a lot of energy into the ingenuity that you're showing at the moment. And this can definitely render results over the next couple of weeks if you dare to be different, with Uranus pushing you to be more innovative in terms of your worldly interactions. But there may be somebody that's close to you that feels a little bit unseen. Maybe you've been so caught up with your mission that they feel you've not been keeping them informed, or you've become so singular-minded that they actually feel neglected. So that's the important thing over the next couple of weeks. There's nothing to say you shouldn't continue your mission, but just make sure that your communication is as inclusive as possible. Got to be honest with you, Virgo, I feel this can actually be quite a tricky full moon for you, because your ruler Mercury is still in retrograde, but it's in house 12. It may feel that someone's not being very open with you, or you haven't heard from someone, or your anxieties are being aroused. And because of the 9th house position of Uranus, that amplifies the sensitivity of the 12th house energy of the cazimi with the sun and your ruler Mercury. Then on the other side of the heavens, we've got the very practical moon. That's very redolent of your core skills, going through processes in an efficient way, being aware of what you need to do. But is there something in the mix you're not actually seeing? It may be a psychological undercurrent. It may even be some opposition. Someone could be quite picky about your performance at the moment. Now, often it's you who's the one who's highlighting little things that aren't quite right. You could be on the end of that from someone else. Even in a partnership, something could come bubbling up to the surface over the next couple of weeks that you're not necessarily expecting. So it's definitely a time to stay attuned to how things feel. If there are things you're concerned about and don't feel in balance, this is a very important time for you. Once the sun moves on the 22nd into your sign, you will feel better. But I think on this particular event, just be very hyper vigilant, whether it's around the practical sphere of your world or the emotional sphere, because things can get exaggerated quite a lot at this time in a way that could feel a little bit uncomfortable. So Libra, it's lovely to be popular, and your popularity can be peaking at this time. The problem is, who do you exclude and who do you go with? You could find yourself with some big choices. What Uranus is saying to you is whoever you decide to hang out with, it needs to feel really, truly authentic. So there could be someone that you're attracted to who has all the right persona, the external sort of virtues that can really attract Libran people. But Uranus, in a way, is going to keep you honest because it's pushing you to examine what the real benefits are of any friendship or love attraction you've got going on at the moment. And of course, the Sun and Mercury in your 11th house is your long-term future. Is there something around your long-term future that's a bit out of sync? Or is there a situation where you have to negotiate a financial matter and it may be delicate about whether you get exactly what you want or need? So Scorpio, for you, the Sun and Mercury are cresting right at the top of your solar chart. So it's possible that something around your professional situation needs to be discussed. A job application, maybe a redeployment, some training that someone wants you to do. And because Uranus is in your opposite sign, it could arouse it within you a little bit of the rebel, particularly if you feel that the emotional side of the equation is not getting heard. So in terms of your worldly interactions at the moment, if there's a lot of demands but not a lot of space for nurture, protection and rest, that could be the thing that really is quite triggering over the next couple of weeks. Then again, in a partnership, if your partner is very invested in their professional situation and you feel that the more emotional dimension of the relationship is not really getting as much attention as it needs, that may be something you need to stand up over this next 14 days. So Sagittarius, the exciting thing about this event is the Sun and Mercury in the Consimi are in house 9. Perfect for you, except that Mercury's not that keen on being in house 9. If we think about it being in your sign, it's in detriment. It's also in retrograde, remember. So you could be talking about a travel plan, maybe some higher education. It could be about a relocation in the mix as well. Uranus in the 6th house is about your daily routines, which have felt very disrupted and fractured almost permanently since March 2019, whereas the Moon in the 3rd house is suggesting that you don't discuss anything too quickly that could have very long-term ramifications upon you. What I can almost guarantee is your nervous system is going to be really maxed out over the next 14 days. If you can find some ways to get some escapism and freedom, do something completely spontaneous, that's a great way to redress the balance. So Capricorn, the Sun and Mercury for you are in house 8. House 8, very complex. It's about deep transformations. Because Mercury's been here once, gone away to house 9, big discussions, maybe a contractual matter, gone back into 8, have you heard back? The retrograde may be calling that one out. Are you showcasing your dazzling talents, Uranus in the 5th, in the way you want? Do you feel valued, whether it's in a partnership or professionally or even in terms of what you're earning? That could be something that's highlighted over the next couple of weeks. What are you to do? Well, your core instinct is, of course, to keep chipping away, be patient and persistent. It's a great quality to have. Sometimes we do need to be aware of moving quickly. Uranus on this event suggests a financial opportunity may come up in the next 2 weeks, but I don't think you'll get a lot of time to make a binding decision upon it. Aquarius, for you, having the full moon in your sign and the Sun and Mercury in house 7, if you're dissatisfied about a relationship of any kind, it's really going to come burning up to the surface over the next 2 weeks. Could be with a family member, Uranus in the 4th. Could be if you don't feel you're getting enough space from the demands of life, because Aquarius people generally need a bit of space. If you feel where you live is too cramped, too big, wrong location, all of those things need to be discussed. If the other person you're trying to reach out to discuss it with is too caught up in pursuing what's important to them, the Leo energy, that could really dig. But equally, having the Sun and Mercury in your 7th house is urging you to try to count to 10. Keep the lines of communication open, because you could still come out of this situation over the next couple of weeks, strengthening your particular situation and also saying how you feel. But I feel if you can use a little bit of honey rather than vinegar, it will be a good thing. So Pisces, for you, the new moon is in house 12, very psychological. But you've had Pluto there since the 21st of January and of course for 11 weeks last year. So you may have been on a bit of a crash course in discovering more about your deeper motivations, but the practicality of Mercury in 6, very Virgoan, even if it's housed in Leo, is asking you to make sure that you don't overlook some important details. Uranus in 3rd in the T-square in this particular event could mean that you feel quite edgy. If you do find it a little bit difficult to unwind at times, try to search around for some new techniques and guidance about how you can tune out, rest your system, get the cortisol to turn off, because there could be quite a lot of excitement over the next couple of weeks. But also there may be something that's a bit out of kilter. If you're working too hard, Pisces people can be so sacrificing. You can give so much to others, but sometimes we can't pour from an empty jar. If that's how you're feeling at the moment, throttle back. Go to bed as early as you can. Get some lovely hot baths with some Epsom salts to really rest yourself. Go for some gentle walks. Go for a spa day, immerse yourself, the moon in house 12, to create a little bit of a healing balm from some of the physical pressures and strains that you may be under. Yet, the Leo and Mercury combination in the 6th house could throw up an opportunity around a job, but it needs to be where your boundaries can be respected too. It's been a pleasure being with you for this Aquarius full moon, this sturgeon moon, this blue moon. Have a great next couple of weeks, and remember, if you would like to discover what year 2025 holds for you personally based on your unique birth data, please see the link below to take advantage of my special offer. Get the rest of this year free, plus your life roadmap report.